This is the Quiggery Water, on its way to join a few other streams of its acquaintance before they all end up in the River Struil at Omagh, some 8 miles away. The Quiggery has just left the village of Fintona, where it has performed some useful service in centuries past. The name Fintona is derived from the Irish for white field. The reason for that description may have been obvious back in the early 1400s, when this was the site of an O'Neill fortification, and the Quiggery Water marked a boundary between 2 territories within County Tyrone that required to be defended. Today, the predominant colour of the fields in and around Fintona, as you can see, is green. Differing shades of green denoting different land uses. Farming, forestry, golfing fairways, and a former domain of a big house that is no longer standing, more of which anon. The village of Fintona begins at the entrance to that domain and follows the contours of a series of small drumlins. The main street drapes itself enticingly over the crest of one of these and draws the gaze of the shopper upwards, forever hinting at bargain offers that lie just around the corner, beyond the horizon on the other side of the hill. It's an optimistic street layout that exudes a kind of calm certainty. Not just that Tyrone will lift the Sam Maguire, but that better days are still to come for all, and that a town's commercial heyday doesn't always have to be in the past. Having said that, Fintona people, certainly those that I encountered, have an extreme fondness for looking back in time. And it's not just idle nostalgia. Shared history, a collective memory if you like, is what strengthens their sense of community. Take Stephen Reid for example. Stephen spent most of his professional career away from the village, but in recent years he's become very interested in its history. I wouldn't normally opt to meet someone for a conversation at a busy intersection, but Stephen and I are at Carnally Bridge just outside the village for a very special reason, because his own personal history begins on this bridge over the Quiggery River.
In 1952, my father was a Dublin man and he was on his way up to Derry to see other family. And for some reason, he got distracted and ended up in Fintona. And he stopped to see and ask where he was. And he happened to ask one lady, whom later was to become my mother.
No.
And that was 1952. So Carnally Bridge to me is quite a special place.
That's where your parents met, in other
This
words.
is where they met in 1952.
That's an extraordinary story. That was chance meeting.
Chance meeting on the bridge. My mother and another friend of hers happened to probably just strolling to the outskirts of the town. People would sort of make a walk or around, sort of circle the town, and Carnally Bridge would have been a destination that many of them would have come down, maybe look over the river, reminisce or talk, and all of a sudden a car pulled up, and that was my father.
Romance blossomed immediately, in other words.
It did, yeah.
That's an amazing story. Now, it is a picturesque, lovely spot. If it wasn't for the traffic, you can just picture this house so quiet and tranquil and rural scene here. But the big road wouldn't have been there as busy as that in those days.
No, back in the day there would have been very little cars or traffic, and indeed if you look at some of the older photographs of the town, you will see very little cars that are parked in the main thoroughfare of the town.
Yeah.
It would have been quite unusual possibly to see a car back in this part of the country in 1952.
I would say horses and carts would still be one of the main forms of transport back in those days.
You would have seen horses and carts.
Well, Stephen's father made good use of that car because he returned to Fintona, married his mother, and they eventually added 10 children to the local population. There's at least one other story associated with Carnally Bridge, but it's a blood-curdling tale of highwaymen, robbery and murder from the 18th century that would make our stay here even more uncomfortable in the midst of all the traffic. So Stephen and I elected to carry on our conversation in the much more peaceful surroundings of Donacavey graveyard nearby. The prefix Donna indicates a church founded by St Patrick, and Donacavey, meaning the Church of the Hollow, is the ancient name of the parish wherein Fintona stands. There are legible gravestones here going back to the early 1700s, and others that have long been illegible going back heaven knows how long. There is one, however, that is relatively recent.
Thomas McGrath. He was in the Royal Enniskillen Fusiliers. As you can see, he died in 1920, which would have been just 2 years after the First World War. Thomas McGrath was a veteran of the Boer War. He re-enlisted to go in and fight in the First World War along with the Royal Enniskillen Fusiliers. His injuries would have been caused in the trenches, and I think his death was caused by lung conditions through gassing.
Through gassing, right. And he lasted 2 years after the end of the war.
He probably had a lingering death, unfortunately.
Right. Stephen's scholarly command of the detail of Fintona's history makes him an invaluable resource for visitors like me. But he's quick to shine the spotlight on others who have made an enormous contribution in this field. About 4 years ago, he tells me, a local couple called Sean and Sharon Pearce set up a Facebook page called Fintona Bygones, inviting anyone connected to the village to share old stories, photographs, memories and memorabilia from their attics and family albums. The response has been overwhelming, and they now have some 2,500 people worldwide doing precisely that on a regular basis.
I think they're like anybody, they look back at their roots and they want some sort of a connection. And thanks to Sean and Sharon Pearce, who set up the site, people now can have a shared history, a shared set of photographs and memories. It's a talking point. It always gets people talking, and it's also a good source for future generations.
Absolutely.
There's things coming up in the Fintona Bygones, old pictures of faded faces that most of us hasn't seen in years, so it causes some excitement and some talking points when we see an old face.
One of the most frequently posted items concerns the horse tram that transported passengers between the two railway stations that once connected Fintona to the rest of the world. There's no doubt that Fintona's commercial heyday owed a great deal to its role as a railway hub, one that ran out of steam when the railways closed in the middle of the 20th century. In some respects, the local population have felt almost bereaved ever since. But they've adopted the horse tram as a heritage icon, and you'll see it emblazoned on signage throughout the village. And apparently this horse has always been called Dick, even though it's been different horses?
Absolutely. It's been a gelding and a mare, but for some reason the name Dick is the name that's been used throughout the ages. There was a previous tram from 1854 to 1883, and that was a completely different shape. The driver would have been at the top front of the tram, and it caused there was lots of tragedies associated with that tram. There was 7 incidents of note and 5 fatalities, and 3 drivers actually lost their lives.
How so? How did that?
I think it was as much to do with the design. When you look at the more modern tram from 1883 till 1957, it's the driver's lower down and he's sort of just at the back of the horse, where back in the old tram you'll see them sitting up like the old stagecoach.
Right.
So
the top heavy, in other words?
Top heavy. Horse maybe jolted. The horse would make probably 11 trips a day, and it was quite a vibrant place. We had 2 cinemas at one point, Kelly's Cinema and Henry's Cinema. I think the final closure of the cinemas in Fintona was probably in the 1980s, but it was quite a vibrant town. People from surrounding small villages would have came to Fintona for a night out.
I'm told that there were some, great centres of entertainment in the town. St Patrick's Hall, people have mentioned more than once.
We're very fortunate to get St Patrick's Hall. That opened in 1935, and as you can see, it's a sort of neoclassical design. It's probably one of the most beautiful buildings in the town. It's always been a bit of a hub for entertainment. We've had concerts and dances, and the local priest could be quite strict during dance. He had a set of rules, and 2 of them that sort of stick out. The jitterbug, the American troops probably would have brought that over to Fintona during the Second World War.
Yes.
It was strictly a no-no in the hall.
Oh, really?
It was seen as too provocative, too raunchy, and also another one of his rules was any ladies leaving the hall during dance period or time of entertainment were not to be readmitted. Picking strictly on the ladies.
That's a strange one, all the same, isn't it?
It's one he wouldn't get away with today,
That's for
but,
sure.
Obviously, he's seen it as, a no-no going outside the hall.
I see. Right.
It wasn't seen as a good
in case romance was involved?
If romance was involved,
Right.
there's definitely no for being readmitted.
It's a good job he wasn't standing down in Carnally Bridge whenever your dad stopped to ask for directions. Isn't that the case?
I think so. I don't think it would have happened.
Well, I think that's an ample sufficiency of nostalgia for this visit to Fintona. When we come back, another graveyard, another Fintona native, another enlightening conversation, but this time with an eye to the future. The old church tower on a brae at the foot of the main street is one of Fintona's iconic ruins. The church itself abandoned and roofless long before anyone alive today was born. If I told you I was on my way to the graveyard surrounding this old Church of Ireland building to meet the chairperson of the Fintona Community Forum, which is an organisation dedicated to reviving the fortunes of the village and improving the quality of life of the local population, then you could be forgiven for thinking I'm about to meet someone of my own vintage or thereabouts. How refreshing to find then that the person who has taken on such an onerous responsibility is young, energetic and full of optimistic plans for the future. Jade Gibson runs her own hairdressing business besides running the forum's affairs. And we're meeting here today because not only is it a local landmark, it's also where her own kith and kin have been laid to rest over many generations.
My family actually would be from the church brae, going back a few generations. So my great-grandmother actually lived right beside the graveyard on the opposite side, and she reared 14 children.
Your great-grandmother?
Yeah, my great-grandmother.
14 children?
14. And all of them but 2 went to England. My grandmother at the time, she was the oldest, so she had to look after her mother. So everyone else was allowed to go ahead, but she had to stay behind to look after her mother, who was sick at the time.
I know that story.
Yeah.
And you grew up in the town
Yeah.
as a young child and still living here now, obviously.
Yeah.
So you must have liked it yourself a wee
Oh,
bit.
I do, and it's a lovely place. It doesn't matter who you are in Fintona, everybody gets along, and there's no, as far as I ever remember, like, and I grew up in the 80s, there was never any division of any kind or any sort.
Very good cross-community relations and all
yeah.
that. Right.
There was never an issue with religions or anything like that in the past, so everybody just got along well.
Well, it's good to see a young person like yourself and heavily involved in that. Was that an easy thing for you to do, or was it? I mean, when somebody came to you and said, "Would you like to be involved in this?"
Well, in fact, what happened is I've kind of fell into it. Fintona had a community forum. It started back in around 2003.
Right.
They did a lot of great things for the town over the years. There was events in the summertime. There was different events for Christmas. And they did things in tidying up the town and getting hanging baskets and things like that that we presume that just happens. But sadly that had fell away over the years and there was no active group. And until last year, I had just put out on Facebook just a post to say, can we all get involved because of the year it's been? Can we brighten up the street for Christmas? I was then contacted by the council to say it's great to see someone getting enthusiastic about things like this, and that we actually don't have anyone doing the Christmas lights for Fintona this year, if you'd like to take it on.
Just like that?
Yes.
Right. So, we got somebody here, yes.
Yeah.
And they homed in on you. Yes.
So that's how it happened, really. And then I just asked, put it out there to ask for people to help, and it was amazing. It was incredible the amount of people that came forward. And we all put on like a drive-through event and organised the lights for Christmas. And then from that, we thought we could be doing more here, and we have set up then a community group. We're actually registering as a charity. So there's about 15 people involved now, heavily involved at the minute.
Excellent.
And I suppose everyone's got different talents, which is incredible, and different backgrounds. So we have some people that are very creative and maybe come up with ideas, and we have other people that are, I suppose, the structure and the backbone of it too, and that's what you need.
A wise head on young shoulders, I'm thinking. But then they believe in starting them young in Fintona. You've heard the expression, born in the saddle? Well, nearly, but not quite in this case. Young Joe Blaney is only 18 months old, but Roisin, his mother, who's running her horse riding class in the Ecclesville Equestrian Centre, has clearly chosen to ignore the old showbiz adage, never work with animals or children.
And is this the first day you've had him on a
Oh
saddle?
God, no. He's been on, he might have been only a few months old when he was on.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's only gearing because he's not moving, is that correct?
Yeah, once we start moving now, he'll stop, won't he? Yeah.
You believe in starting them young anyway?
Well, he enjoys it, so something that I thought he probably wouldn't want to do, but he does, so if he enjoys it, I'll keep him at it.
Right, so he'll be. I think you better take him for a wee spin
We'll
around.
do for a wee walk. Hold you on now, we'll go for a walk.
Hold on there,
We'll go for a
Joe.
walk.
You can bring him back in a wee minute.
You might be surprised to learn that when it comes to sporting facilities, the village of Fintona enjoys a level of provision that would be the envy of any large town or city. We're in the indoor arena of the Ecclesville Equestrian Centre, which also boasts an outdoor arena and fully equipped stabling for 26 horses. Both of the arenas require a special and very expensive surface covering to make them suitable and safe for horses and riders at top competition level. Ecclesville is also a community leisure and recreation complex, housing an indoor sports hall and fitness suite, a cafe and exhibition spaces, and it's got tennis courts and other sports pitches outdoors. All of this located in fabulous parkland which was formerly part of the centuries-old Ecclesville domain. So how come Fintona received such largesse? Well, 25 years ago, money for public projects was more available. But it still took a cocktail of funding from the International Fund for Ireland, the Department of Environment, Omagh District Council, and considerable fundraising from the local community to get it off the ground. The funders were responding in the first place to a strong and passionate horse riding lobby who wanted to build on Fintona's already established reputation as a venue for top-class gymkhanas. But they also wanted to ensure access to non-equestrian facilities for the whole community. The initial layout was lavish, but the funding climate has changed considerably in the last 2 decades, and it now falls to Administrator Maria King and her team to make ends meet. The council still provides for the basic upkeep, but this is an expensive place to run.
So fundraising is still a big part of
Oh,
your
very
job.
much. Very, very much.
Because the ongoing maintenance and costs must be enormous
Yeah,
as well. I would have
overheads
thought.
are astronomical,
Yeah.
to be honest.
But
Yeah.
you were saying that, and I found this fascinating, that the indoor arena can be transformed, not with a click of a finger, but it can be transformed into for these jamborees.
Oh yes,
into,
yes.
into a venue that you wouldn't recognise.
Oh, you wouldn't recognise it. It holds a big number of people. 3,000
not
people.
just up on the balconies.
Oh no, they're not even in the balcony. No,
Right.
they put a floor down on
floor
the actual horse arena, on the horse surface.
Really.
Yes, they put a floor down there, and then they construct a dance floor, which is a smaller part of the floor.
Yeah.
And then there's tables and seating all around the place, and a bar, and a huge stage, and lighting and pyrotechnics and all sorts. It is unbelievable. It's like going to a big concert in the Odyssey or some of those big
Yes.
venues. They put drapes all the way around because the acoustics wouldn't be great in it apart from anything else. But then
Right.
the drapes also hide all the all the bits we
all
don't
the
want.
all the horsey bits.
Yeah,
So
it does need a bit of a clean before that happens.
How often during the last year and a half is what I'm trying
Oh,
to
there's
say.
been nothing.
There's been nothing. At
Nothing.
all.
Absolutely nothing. The only thing we've been allowed to do in the last year and a half, people who own horses who are stabled here have been allowed to come in and exercise them, and they can do it indoors.
Right.
Because in the winter time you couldn't go outside
Of
because
course.
horses
Right.
could get injured and people can get injured.
So it's still a very, very useful facility. even
Oh,
with all the lockdown.
and since we've reopened again from this last lockdown, it's been extremely busy. Just with people, not just the people who are using, who are in the stables and the riding school that operates out of there, but just people wanting to get their horses out, to exercise them, to get them over a course of jumps, to prepare maybe for an event that they're going to go to somewhere else, or it has been very, very busy.
Russian, were you that age yourself whenever you first got on a horse?
No, I would have been. Ecclesville opened here, I think it was 94,
Right.
and I started then once it opened. But we live in the town, like, so there wasn't horses or anything. My brother rode years ago, but there wasn't horses, you know. I suppose we didn't grow up with a farm or anything like that. It was like an addiction. Once you started, then you couldn't stop.
Well, you took to the horses naturally, obviously.
Yeah, so I was about 4. I was about 4 when I started.
Get away.
And then I've rode all my life really, and I opened here 10 years ago now. I'm here, and all these girls that are here, like, there's so much interest, so much love for it, and you either love it or you don't, because it's every hour of every day. You know, there's no break.
Yeah.
You have to keep it, and especially when they're competing and it shows, they're here at 4 and 5 in the morning to get away out.
4 and 5 in the morning.
To have them fed and to get away to a show.
Yeah.
And then you come home and you have to unpack and sort them all out again. So
a horse is nearly as big a commitment as a child, isn't
100%, yeah. Yeah, I would say they're harder because they can't actually tell you what they're looking for or what they need, but you just have to.
Well, Joe has no difficulty telling you what he wants.
He tells you all the time what he wants.